How's it going, guys? Handicapable Gamer back once again, and today I have my review for the talk of the town, SUPERHOT. This is a game that everyone on PlayStation VR has been waiting for because it's probably the most talked about VR game since VR has become a consumer viable product. So everybody was dying to get their hands on it, and now it's here. My worry was that it wasn't going to be accessible for players sitting down, and the verdict on that is somewhat of a mixed bag, depending on your situation, so let's get into it. First and foremost, I want to review the game as if it was just a normal game with no accessibility issues. The sound design is very effective because when you're moving, you get a wind blowing sound to tell you that time is moving with you. And the gunshots sound good enough to be believable, especially at closer range. In terms of story, there isn't one, but nobody expected that here. This game is all about the gameplay. In terms of the gameplay itself, it is a first-person shooter, but it's got puzzle elements to it, and some would say it's actually more of a puzzle game than a shooter. The reason for that is because time only moves when you move. So you have to determine how fast you're going to move, and do you dive for a gun and immediately start shooting, or do you go real slow, literally take the gun out of somebody's hand, use it to block bullets flying through the air, and then move on from there. Many times you'll have to redo certain sections, and it's kind of trial and error to determine what the best course of action is for each area. The game is broken up into miniature sections, and as you beat each one, you get the grab symbol to grab and access the next one. One of the downfalls of the game is that it only saves after certain segments, and that's basically when you see the game say SUPERHOT, you know it's saving. So a lot of times you might get through 3 or 4 segments, you get to the final segment of that section, and you die. You have to start the whole segment over again. So it's not an easy game. It is very difficult, but it is so much fun. I've never had an experience like it in VR, and I was hoping that would be the case, but I was never really sure. I didn't have any issues with tracking, and I was playing sitting down, so that was extremely impressive as well. And the tracking also helps when you have to make deliberate movements. There's nothing more satisfying than using the side of your gun to knock a bullet out of the air as it's about to hit you in the face. The campaign itself is about 3 hours long, but it can take much longer than that depending on how good you are. If you die a lot like I did, it'll probably take you upwards of 5 to 6 hours. And after you beat the game, you get access to several different modes, including a hard mode, a mode where you use only your fists, an endless mode where you just get to play and see how long you can stay alive, and I think 1 or 2 other modes that I'm not remembering at the moment of recording this. But now to the most important part for me, accessibility. So what's the deal? Can we play this sitting down or not? The answer is yes, if you're willing and able to do a couple things. First and foremost, whether you're playing sitting or standing, you're going to need quite a bit of room for this game, because you don't want to be swinging your arms into objects when you're trying to melee enemies or anything like that. And you can melee in this game, and it's awesome. So that's point number 1, is you need a lot of space. Number 2, if you're going to play sitting, you need at least a swivel office chair, and preferably one that has a back that can kind of lean or dip a little bit. That way, if a bullet is coming at your face, you can lean out of the way or lean back. Because ideally, if you were playing standing, you would just crouch down and avoid the bullet. But if you're playing sitting, you don't really have the option to crouch. So you need a chair with low arms so that the arm doesn't restrain your leaning ability from side to side, and a back that can lean or be removed or something of that nature. That way you can just lay back out of the way of the bullets. I was playing from my power wheelchair, so I set the back to recline and laid it almost all the way back, and then I sat forward on the edge of my seat and just leaned side to side to avoid bullets. When I could, I used my gun to knock them out of the way so I didn't have to move my body. And then when I really got into a bind, like, somebody shoots a shotgun with a bunch of pistols and there's 5 bullets coming at me at once, I would lean back out of the way. And that was also pretty satisfying when it worked effectively. There was one segment where it was even called Surrounded, and you had to effectively kill 4 guys, 2 coming at you from each side. 2 of them are armed with knives, and you're not given a weapon. So you have to punch one of the ones with the knives, and then grab the knife and use it to kill the other 2. Same thing on the other side. You grab the one guy's knife and use it to kill both of them. And at one point I was doing that segment, I grabbed the knife, swung it around in a circle, and killed all 4 guys. And it was one of the most satisfying things I've ever done in a video game. So, when it comes down to it, if you can stand and play, go buy this game immediately. It's amazing. You're going to love it. It's a hell of a workout, even if you're sitting. And you won't be disappointed, because even though the game itself can probably be beaten in, 2 to 3 hours max, if you're good enough, the endless mode will keep you coming back just for the feeling of how the game flows. If you're playing sitting, just be prepared to follow some of the tips I gave, and you should still be able to have fun. Whether or not you'll actually make it to the end, I can't say that, because that would vary based on experience and how much you're able to move your body. But either way, sitting or standing, it's worth it. And I think PSVR may have a killer app on their hands, because sometimes we get PC VR ports that end up being disappointing because something is lost in translation. But this time they seem to have nailed it. I didn't really have any issues where I couldn't grab guns or the tracking was off and I was missing. That just didn't happen. The only complaint I would have is that on the original PlayStation 4, which I'm playing on, there was definitely some jaggies present, but the visuals were still nice for what they are. I don't really have any other complaints to mention. There is an ability that you get, kind of like a superpower, where you can use kind of a psychic ability to basically kill your enemies without touching them. And I have heard some people say that when they would push the move button and the trigger buttons down to activate it at the same time, it would refuse to activate, but I didn't have that problem, so I can't really speak to that. All in all, the game's fun, it's fast, it's frenetic, it's accessible if you're willing to adapt it to your needs. If you can stand, play standing. If you can't, try out a few things and make it work for you. It's priced at $19.99 and you can play it for hours. So even if you're playing sitting and can't manage to get to the end because it's too difficult, you could always just replay some of the earlier sections because they're still just as fun. If you guys have any other questions that I haven't addressed, feel free to let me know and I'll answer them. But that's my thoughts on SUPERHOT VR. Thanks, and I'll talk to you guys soon.